Okay, so I hope I'm audible. Can someone write in the chat? Okay then. So welcome to week 5 of this course. Okay, so some rules about this class. So yeah, I'll be solving some questions and in between, try not to unmute yourself in between when I'm solving the questions. You can, if I ask the question, any question after I finish solving, then you can unmute yourself and ask questions, or you can anytime you can just type in the chat if you have any queries about some specific things. So okay, so let's get started. So the purpose of these sessions are obviously for you to solve these questions yourself. So yeah, there's not a lot of time, so I'll be not be giving you too much time to solve the questions on your own, but you can obviously solve them later on. But yeah, but still I would like you to, when I show you a question, I would like you to at least try to think about how to solve the question, or at least try some part of the code yourself, at least like try to solve it yourself first. I'll give you 2 minutes to solve, then I'll start solving the questions myself. Okay, so let's get started with question 1. So this week is about functions and dictionaries in Python. So this first question is about strings, which is not new, but I will just be using a function to do that, some string operations. So should not be too new to people. So the question says, write a function that takes a string, say called S, a character called C, and a number n, and then removes the nth occurrence of the character from the string. So you already know that you may already know that Python has a built-in function called replace, some string dot replace. If you do that, then it will remove all of those characters, right? So what you have to do is not remove all characters, but you have to remove specifically the nth occurrence of the character from the string. So if you want to take 2 minutes to think about it, then I'll start solving the questions. Let me put this to a side. So let me keep it like this. So okay, so let me start with some inputs and outputs. So suppose program to remove nth occurrence of a char from a string, right? So this is what we want to do. So suppose input, you have suppose a string, say abc abc abc, something like this, and then say this is S, and then suppose you have C as say A, and N is suppose 2. Then you have to replace the second occurrence from the string. So basically you have to remove this middle A from the string. So finally your output will be ABC, BC, ABC. So this will be our output. So we have removed the second A from this string. Okay. So how do we go on to solve this? So let's write a function. So you know that in Python we write a function using the keyword define, and then like def for define, and then we give some name to the function. So let's call it remove nth. Let's call it this. Screen not visible. Is screen not visible to everyone? I think screen should be visible. I'm sharing my screen. You can just leave the meeting and join again quickly. Can someone else see the screen? I hope my screen is visible. Okay, yeah, screen should be visible. Okay then, so let's continue with this function. So it will take three parameters obviously, so let's call them s, c and n. So we have to we have the string, we have some character, and we have to remove the nth occurrence. Okay, so how do we go about doing this? So firstly we have to find, so there is something written in the bracket, so do nothing if c is present less than n times. So obviously we have to first find if there is actually at least n number of times c is repeated. So for that we have to uh, basically count how many times character c is there. So we can go on counting it, say 1 to n times, and then once we reach the nth time, once we find the nth c, then we remove it. And if we don't find c n times, then we just return it right there and then. So we'll start with, say, a for loop for I in range say 0 to n, or you can do, say, 1 to n plus 1. Let's just do 0 to n, right? So now we want to basically find which position c is in, right? The first, like the character c, what position is it in, the first occurrence. So for that the string has already a function built in called find, and then we can pass c. So what this does is, let's try this out first. Let's check out in the terminal what c does. So suppose you have a string, say the same string abc abc abc, and then so what does find does is, so you can see it already gives some hint. So you have to find what is the character and then some starting and ending position, right? So if we just give, say, a, then it will give you 0 because a is present in the first character itself. If you do b, then it will show 1. So this will return the first occurrence of this character in the string, right? Like what position is this character there. But if you want to find the a after the first a, so you already know that there is a in the beginning. So where is the next a after 0? So for that, what you have to do is give a second parameter, which is the starting index from where you should start looking. So by default, it starts looking from the beginning of the string, which is from index 0. So if you do this, or if you give this, they will give the same answer. So because like you are telling it, like start looking from 0 itself. If you want to start looking after 0, then you have to give, say, 1. So now it will give us 3, which is the second occurrence of the string a. So what this gives us is the first occurrence of the of the character a after position 1. So this is what we will utilize to find the nth occurrence. So basically, and also let's see what happens if we give something which is not in the string. So suppose d is not present in the string, so it will give us -1, right? So if we get a -1, then we know that this string is not there after this position. Or even if we suppose we do a comma 7, then we see after 7th character there is no more a's, right? So we will get a -1. So these are the things that this is the function that we'll utilize to solve this problem. So suppose index equals to s dot find c, right? And let us store a previous index. Let's call it 0. So initially it will be 0 and we'll pass it to here. So we want to find, initially we'll get the first occurrence of the character c in s, and we'll store that in index idx. And so we want to do this n times, right? So this is basically what will go on. So now next, once we find the index, we want to look for the next character after this index, right? So we will do prev equals to index plus 1, and we run this loop for n times. So what this will do is find out the nth time that the character c is present. Now it can be one of two things. If we get a -1, then we know that d is not present, and if it is not -1, then we know that we have to remove that. So let us check here, or we can just check it before previous also. Let's check it over here. If index equals to -1, then we know that the string is not present in the character is not present in the strings like more than n times. So we'll just return as it is, so return s. And if the string is present, then what we have to do, so if the string is present, then we have to basically remove it. So for removing, let us create a temporary string tmp equals to, so we will have all the characters before this position index, and we'll have all the characters after this position index, right? So for that, we'll just extract out s from start to index -1, and then from start to index, or say index up to index, not index -1, because it will, by default it will take one position less, and then from index +1 till the end. So this is what we are doing to essentially remove the character at the position idx, and then we just return tmp, right? Or you could have just return over here, the same thing. So let us test this function out. Say remove, so let us run it and test out the function. Okay, remove nth. Say we have an input string abc abc abc. We want to remove the character a, and we want to do it like the second a, right? So you can see it has correctly removed the second a from the string. Let us try with some another input, say 3, the third a we want to remove. Now you can see abc abc bc, so we have removed the second occurrence of a. And what happens if we give a bigger number, say 6, then you can see the string is unchanged, abc abc abc, right? So this is the function remove nth occurrence. So any doubts about this? You can unmute yourself and ask. Okay. So now continuation of this question. So now that we have a function to remove the nth occurrence of a character in a string, so now we want to use this function to keep only one occurrence of each character in the string. So basically there are repetitions, say abc abc abc, so we want to basically keep just abc, just one occurrence of each character in the string. So this should not be a very large modification, so just think about it for 2 minutes and you can write in the chat if you know the answer. So basically you have to use this function remove nth to basically keep only one occurrence of each character in the string. So basically you have to run just 2 loops basically. So can you, any ideas on how to do it? You have to just run 2 loops and then call this function. Let me put on the question. Okay, no answers yet. Okay, so it's not very difficult. Just 2 functions, 2 loops. So what you have to do is you have to check, firstly you have to check each character in the string, and then you have to keep removing basically how many times it is there after the first occurrence. You have to basically check. So one, let's do while say let's take an index, say I equals to 0, which will count which character we are currently checking, while I is less than length of the string. So let's take a input string s as abc abc, let's call it abcd abcg abcf, something like this. Okay, so you want to keep checking till the length of the string, and then what we want to do is basically we want to basically remove all occurrences of the ith character except the first occurrence obviously, and then we want to basically keep doing this for all the other characters, right? So we want to remove basically the ith character, so we can call this function remove. So let's do s equals to remove nth. We'll pass s, we'll pass the character c, which is s of I, and then we'll just keep the first occurrence. Obviously we want to remove the second occurrence, and this will remove the second occurrence if it is there, and if it is not there, then string will be unchanged, right? And we want to keep doing this till like s is not changing anymore. So if s equals let's say we need another function, sorry, one other variable, say current len, or say l equals to s len s, right? So if len s is equals to s l, so this means that the length has not changed. So if the length has not changed after removing this character, that means that there is not more than there is only one of these characters, right? So we want to move on to the next character. So for doing that, we will just do I plus equals to 1. So we'll move on to the next character and do the same thing for it. And yeah, that's it. I think this should then we can just print s finally, and this should do the trick. If we run it, okay, so it is getting stuck in a loop. It is getting stuck in an infinite loop. So okay, so something is going wrong. So let's find out what is going on. Let's see. So yeah, in cases like this, it's best to have some messages here, like some error messages, so that you can figure out what is going on. So I'll just print s step by step. In each line we'll see what is going on. So if we run this, you can see that it is not changing at all. So the a's have been removed, but then b is not getting removed, right? So we can also print I. Oh yes. So what is wrong? Has anyone figured out? So I is not changing. So something is wrong with some part of this code. So has anyone figured out what is wrong? So basically I is not increasing. So this part, something is wrong with I. Yes, Kunj. So yeah, no, I plus equals to 1 just means I equals to I plus 1. So that is not the problem. But so if this part is not the problem, then something must be wrong with this part, right? So here we are checking if the length of the s is equals to l or not, right? But if it is not, then we have to update the value of l, right? So this is to check if the length is same. But if the length is not same, then we have to like change l to the new length, right? So that's what we have not done here. So l equals to len s. So changing l to the new length of the string if the length has removed. You can also write it in a else statement, or you may not. It will give the same answer. So if we run this now, you can see that all the characters are present only one, and this time it works correctly. If we would like to see the string one by one, we can print it, and you can see that first step all a's have been removed, other than the first a obviously. Then in the second step, all so first all the a's are getting removed, then the b's are getting removed, then the c's are getting removed, and so on. Excuse me. So that's how it goes. Okay, so any doubts? Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this question is not really a question, but I just wanted to, so since we have dictionaries, I just wanted to show some basic operations on dictionaries, and basically how to do it in a Pythonic way. uh, what is the optimal way to say initialize a dictionary and create a dictionary from two lists, right? So we'll do all of these operations one by one on our dictionary, and I hope you know what a dictionary is. So a dictionary in Python is like, you can say, it's like an array, but instead of getting say indexes like in a 0 1 2 form, we can give some labels to it. We can have some keys. So we can, for example, say that Monday equals to 1, or say not Monday, so let's say January equals to 1 first month, or say February equals to second, something like that. So suppose we want to initialize a dictionary. So how do we do it? We'll do it quickly. So to initialize a dictionary, we just have to do some key followed by some value. So the format is like key and then value, then comma, and then you do the rest. So for example, suppose you want to give January is 1, February is 2, and so on. So this is how you let's do a couple more. March equals to 3, April equals to 4. So this is how you initialize a dictionary, and then when you have this, then you can access the dictionary using the keys. Say if you print D February, then you'll get 2 as the answer, right? So this is a basic dictionary, how you create a basic dictionary. Now suppose if you have a list of all the months, say months equals to say a list, January, say Jan, Feb, March, April, and say one more, May. So suppose we have a list of months, right? So how do we create a dictionary of the similar kind from just this list? So for that, we do some list comprehension like last time. So we do a for loop for month in months, and here we have to give something and colon something. So this is how do we do it, like some key and then some value, key and the value, right? So obviously you can understand that in this case the key will be the month itself, but what will be the value? The value will be the index of the month, right? So that's where our enumerate function comes in. So if you may remember, there's a function called enumerate, which basically gives you a list of the indices as well as the months. So let us try out and see what enumerate does first. So suppose we have say so let's just run this. So for mon in months, print mon. So you can see it is printing out the list. Now what enumerate does? Enumerate, if you just do it like this and if you print it, you can see it is now getting two numbers. It is producing a tuple of two elements, like the index and the element itself. So to get it in two separate variables, we want two separate variables, right? So we just give I comma month, and then we can print, say, print I and print month, and then you can see we have this individual indices and the element names. So here now you can understand what we have to write in case of value. Here we just write I, and again when we print February, we'll get to the result 1. So you can check the dict now. So it is the same now. It has been created in the same way. So this is how you can create a dictionary from say a list by enumerating. So how, if you have say two lists, say numbers or values, so suppose you want to have a list of how many days are there in each month. So 31, 28. So let us suppose it's not a leap year, 31 and then 30 and then 31 again. Yeah, I hope there are 31 days in May. I'm not sure, but okay. So if you want to create a, you can understand like how many days are there in each month. You want to create that dictionary from these two lists. So what do you do? So in this case, what you have to do is you have to use the zip function. There's some function called zip, and we'll be using that, comma I, or days, days, day in zip months, comma values, it's called. Okay. So what this does, zip does, is it takes two lists, and it takes the first element of the first list, it takes the first element of the second list, and it sends them together in the loop, and then it in the next iteration of the loop, it takes the second value of the first list, it takes the second value of the second list, and it passes it down to the loop. So let's try it out. So suppose we have these two. We'll again see an example first. For I comma j, let's just call it that, for in zip months comma values. So this is a very useful function when you have to iterate two lists together. And if you can print say I and print j, you can see that it prints out the values in each of the lists. So this is a really useful function, this zip function, when you have to iterate two things at once, or you can do like multiple things also. You can have as many, like you can do again months over here. So you can have something like this also, or like some other list. So you can do it with any number of lists. So in this case, you can see if we run this code, we're again iterating over the two lists, months and values, and if we print out d, you can see that it has been formed as we want, and we can obviously print out the number of days in February, which is 28. That's what we got as input. Okay, so now that we have created a dictionary from two lists, suppose we want to merge two dictionaries. So how to do that? So suppose we have this dictionary, and suppose we have another dictionary, say months 2 equals to say June, July and August. Okay, values 2 equals to say I think 30 days in June and July, or is it, I forgot. So let's say this is our function. Okay, sorry, so let's call it d1, and let's call this d2. Again the same thing, if we run it, okay, this will not work. Suppose now we have d1 and d2, right? So d1 we can check and d2 we can check. Oh sorry, so this will be months 2 and values 2. Sorry about that. So now we can again check d1 and d2. So we have these two dictionaries. Now how do we merge their results, right? So obviously we could have just merged the lists together and then created a new dictionary, but to merge two dictionaries you just have to use the d1.update function. So what update does is it basically adds every key in d2 to d1. So now if we check d1, now you can see it has all the days till August, not just till May. So this is how we have just merged two dictionaries. So basically you have to just write d1.update d2, right? But here you have to be a bit careful, right? So what happens if some keys are the same? So suppose we also have a May over here. Suppose we have a May here, and suppose this May is say 10. So this is suppose something like this. So what will happen if we now do d1.update d2? So let's run it and let's check the value of d1. So now you can see that May has actually, earlier May was 31 as expected, but now May has been replaced with the new value, right? So this you should be careful about. So if you have some keys in the dictionary which are same, then they will be updated with the new values. Okay. So there are ways to prevent this, or if you want to do something else, suppose you want to add those up instead of replacing them, then there are some other ways to do it. For example, you have a special kind of dictionary called a counter. So that you have to import actually from collections, import counter. So a counter is like a dictionary, but it is slightly different in the way that it is used for counting. So when you use a counter as a dictionary, that time you will basically just use like you will add them up instead of replacing them. So let's just do it like this. Counter. So this is how we counter. Okay. So now if we check the value of D1, now you can see that May has become 41. So it has become 31 plus 10, 41, right? So this is what you do if you have to add things up into dictionaries, then you use a counter. And then counter has some additional benefits also, like if you are using a counter, then you can just find the top 5, like top most common elements. But we'll come to that in our next question. So okay, so yes, just now let's say we have to find the sum of values in a dictionary. So how do we do that? So let's go back to just normal dictionaries again. Yes. So now if suppose we want to get the sum of all the values in D1, right? So how do we do that? So we just use the sum function in Python, right? And we do d dot values. So what d dot values does is it returns us why is it showing an error? Oh sorry, not D1. Okay, so what this does is it basically just returns a list of all the values that are present, and then we're just finding out the sum. Then if you print it out, we'll get a sum of all the numbers in D1, which are basically these. If you sum these up numbers, then you'll get 151. So this is how you get the basically sum of values. And so let's see what d dot values actually does. Values. So it will just return us. It is called a dict values type object, but basically it just returns us values. Similarly, we also have dict dot keys, which will return us the keys, but we generally don't need to use d1 dot keys, because if you just use like say something like list ds d1, then you will get the keys itself. Or if you want to check if a certain key is present in a dictionary or not, suppose you want to check if March is there in the dictionary or not, so you can do if March in d1, right? So it will show you it is true. So you can do it in another way, which is d1 dot keys. This will also be true, or you can just do if March in d1. So this is how to do it. And if you want to check, suppose if March in d2, so March is not there in d2, so it will show you false. So this is how you check if a element is there in a dictionary or not. And finally, suppose we want to remove some keys or values from a dictionary, then we can just use the pop function. So we can use say d1. Okay, so d1 is already there. So suppose we want to remove say March from this dictionary, then we just do d1 dot pop, and we pass in here March, right? And it will also return the value of March. But now if we check the d1, we can see that March has been removed from d1. But what if we try to do this again? Then March is not present, so it will show you an error that March is actually not present in the dictionary. So always before removing, you should actually check if it is present or not. So if you want to remove something, so if you should always check first if it is present or not. So if March in d1, then d1 dot pop March. So this is how you should actually remove variables from a dictionary. Okay, all right. Okay, so one last thing is suppose now we want to remove some items from this d1 based on the values, right? So suppose we want to remove all of the all of the months which have 31 days in it. Okay. So suppose we want to remove January, March, and May. So how do we do it? So let's create a new dictionary from it. So let's call it D2 equals to. So we'll again use kind of like list comprehension. So again we'll do for keys comma values in D1 dot items. So I think this what items does is it basically gives us a list of the key and value pairs so that we can iterate over them. And then we can check if so now we have to keep only the key and values which are where the value is not equals to 31. So we have to again create a dictionary basically. So key value the same thing, but we only keep the ones where the value is not equals to 31. So for that we just do an if after the list. So if value is not equals to 31, right? So if we run this and if we check D2, then you can see it only contains Feb and April. So yes, this is also useful. This also can be used with lists when you want to create a list. So if you want to selectively take some elements, then you have to write the if after the for loop. If you want to just use a normal if condition between two values, then you can also give it before the for loop. So any questions about this? We can actually see an example of the two things, what it does. Suppose we have a list of say, yes, any questions?
Can we use the push command in this?
What
Here
command?
we are using pop command, push command.
Sorry, I cannot understand.
Push command and pop command.
Yes, you can obviously use push, and push is there in dictionary? I'm not sure. Is there a push in dictionary? Push is not there in dictionary. Push is there like in list there is like append. But yeah, pop command you can use like I showed just a while ago. But pop can only be used for like removing with the key. If you know the key, then you can remove using the pop command, or you can remove it like this also. But if you want to remove say with the values, then I think this is the easiest way to remove it. And yes. Okay, so I'll just quickly show an example of how to do some list comprehension with set checking. So if you want to create so if you have a list L 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, nothing fancy. Suppose you want to keep only the odd numbered digits. So what do you do? So you want to do x for x in list, and then you give a if x is x mod 2 not equals to 0. So if you do this, then you will get a list of only the odd numbers. If you do this equals to 0, then you will get a list of only the even numbers, right? So this is useful. So if you write if after the for statement, then this is useful for removing items from the list. But if you want to change some items in the list, suppose you want to add 1 to all the even numbers so that all the numbers become odd numbers. So you can do x if x mod 2 not equals to 0, else x plus 1. So what this will do is this will add 1 to all of the even numbers. So if you want to change some values in the list, then you have to write this if statement before the for. And if you want to remove some or like selectively choose some items from the list, then you have to write this if statement after the for loop, like the previous case we did. Okay, so this was a list comprehension. Okay, let's move on to the next question. And yes, so we'll hurry up a bit because time is less. Okay, so suppose we are given two strings, then we want to check if they are anagrams or not. So what are anagrams? Anagrams are basically strings which can be derived from another strings by rearranging the characters. So if you just rearrange the characters, you can get one string from another string. So you want to check if two strings are anagrams of each other or not. So basically what we have to do over here is we have to count how many times each character is present in one string, and then we have to count how many times each character is there in another string, and then you have to check if the occurrences are same or not. this is what we have to do. So suppose we are given two strings, s equals to a b c d e f, or let's do some repetitions also. A b c d e f, a b c, string 1, and let's say string 2 equals to say something else, say d e f a b c a b b c c, something like this, d e f, so something like this. So these two are anagrams because you can just rearrange the letters and you can get to the other string. So how do we count the occurrences of the characters in each string? So we will use a dictionary for this. Again, d1 equals to, say, initialize an empty dictionary. Okay, we don't need to create an empty dictionary, we can just count the letters from here. So again, we'll use the similar technique as before. So for character in s1, so what do we give here? Any ideas? Okay, so we'll just initialize. So since we are initializing it, so for each character in s1, we'll just do like character points to 0. Okay, so what this is doing is basically for each character present in the string, we are initializing the value to 0, right? So each character will now point to 0. So if we just check what is there in d1, you can see that all of the characters that are present in s1 are there along with zeros. So already you can see that we are already getting the unique characters here, but now we have to increase these counts, right? So for that we will just go over each character in the d1 sorry s1, and then d1 character plus equals to 1. Okay, so if we do this, then we can see that a b c are there 2 times and the others are there 1 time, right? So this is a very simple way to do it, nothing too difficult. So we'll just do it for the other dictionary too. d2 is equals to s2 s2 s2, right? So now we can check d1 and d2, and we can obviously see that the letters are arranged in a different way, but we can say that the contents are same. So what happens if we just do comparison between d1 and d2? So we can see that they are equal, right? So we just have to check here if d1 equals to d2, then print they are anagrams, else print, say, not anagrams, right? So this is one way to do it. So the other way to do it is more easier way to do it, or not easier, but you can say more time consuming, more shortcut way to do it is use the counter, like I showed in the previous example. So let us import the counter. So this counter is basically like a special dictionary, you can say, which is used for counting. And so in the previous case, when I showed you the example, that time we were not actually counting things, we are just, say, keeping a track of how many days are there in each month. But here we are actually, we want to count the number of characters in each string. So this is the perfect application for this counter. So what we have to do is just none of this, just d1 equals to counter s1, and same for this, d2 equals to counter s2, and that's it. So this is just doing basically all of your work, and then we just check if they are same or not, right? So if we just check d1, so now it says a counter, it does not like it says it's a counter, and d2 it's also a counter, and yeah. So this is the shortcut way of you can counting any characters in a string or like elements in an array. So if you have an array of numbers, you can also use the counter to count the occurrences of that number in that list. Yes, any questions?
Yes, I have one question.
Yes.
That you are importing counter in the Spider.
Yes.
So is there a counter library available in VS Code?
Yes, so counter this is like this is of Python. This has nothing to do with Spider or VS Code. So Spider is, you can say, Spider is just like your Notepad. So if you are using Windows, you have Notepad or some Microsoft Word, right? So Spider is also like software to actually write programs. It has nothing to do with Python. So this counter is actually a part of Python. Okay. So VS Code is also similar to similar to Spider in that sense that you can write your code on it. But yeah, this counter, this is a part of Python, so you can do it anywhere. Anywhere you have Python, on Spider, on the terminal, if you want to say try it out on the terminal, Python. You can also do say import collections, or say from collections. Oh, it's not okay. From collections, import counter. So you can do it basically anywhere there is Python. Does not matter if you are using Spider or say even Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebooks. So okay, so that is how you use counters. Let's quickly move on to the next question, which is a slight modification of this question. So now we have say given a string, we want to print all of the unique characters in order of their frequencies. Okay, so we have these this string, and then we want to print out the characters in the order of their frequencies, right? So suppose we just need only one string here. So we already have a counter. So if we just print say for again like a d1, like a counter is also like a dictionary, so also you can use like items in d1 dot items. This is like similar to a dictionary, so you can use d1 dot items. You can print say let us print just the keys. Okay, so you can see it is printing in some arrangement. So this is fine. It may look arranged because this is the correct answer, but suppose if it was not arranged in this way, suppose it was arranged in df a b b c c, like this format. So now if we run, then you can see this is not the correct orientation, right? The correct orientation should be a b c then df, because we have to print it in as the question says, in the order of their frequencies. So the characters which occur more number of times, you have to print them first. Let's just take this example. Okay, sorry. Yeah, let's remove the spaces for now, and then we'll add the spaces and deal with it later on. So if we run it, then we see we are not getting the correct output. We should get abgcdw, but we are getting some other format, right? So how do we basically, we have to sort the items based on the values. So how do we do that? So we have to basically get us a list. Let's call it the list of the keys, the characters, and each element in the list will be sorted according to d1, right? So we can just use d1 s1 dot sort. Okay, or just do, let's do d1 dot sort. Okay, d1 dot sort, is it there? Let me check. d1 dot sort. No, it has no sort. Okay, so let's just do let's make a list of all the keys from d1 first. So all the keys is like x for x in d1. So this will give us, so L will become all of the unique, basically all the unique items in the string s1. And now we have to sort it according to the frequencies, right? And we already have the frequencies in d1. So d1 already has the frequencies. So we want to sort it according to the frequencies. So we just do L dot sort. And now we have to pass some function to tell it that yes, we want to sort it by the second element. Okay, by like the frequency that is present in d1, right? So how do we do that? So for this we have to basically pass a function here. So the sort takes actually a function. Like how do you sort? You can tell it. So if you just do sort, it will just print. Oh, sorry, we did not print it. So if we just print L. So if we just do L dot sort, so it will obviously print in alphabetical order, right? But this is not what we want. So we want to print it according to the frequencies. So for that we have to pass some function over here. So let's call it some func. Okay, and we'll write the function here. So basically the function will be so if you are given an x, then you have to return d1 of x. So this function, what it does is it takes the value, takes a key x, and then it returns the value of that key in the dictionary, right? And now if we sort it, we can see that okay, so it has sorted in the ascending order. We want to do it in the like descending order, so we'll do reverse equals to true. I hope yes. So A, B, G, C, D, H, W. So this is now in the sorted order of their frequencies, because A is there most number of times, then B is there, and so on. So this function again, instead of writing a, so this is a very simple function. You can see that just a one line function. So when you have one line functions like this, you actually don't need to use define like this. When you just need to use a function, say once, you can do this. You have something called a lambda function, which is like, for purposes of this course, you can think of it like a one line function that can be used just once. So you are just giving lambda x d1 x. So this just means the same thing as, say, define function x and then return d1 x. So this thing, this part is basically doing the same thing as this part, but this is like a one line function and we cannot store it, so we cannot use it next time. We are just using it once, so we are not giving the function a name. We are just telling that this is a lambda function, the parameter is x, and when you have the parameter, you return d1 x. So this is doing the same thing as this function is doing. So if we run this, this should again give the same results, basically. Yes. So this lambda function is specifically, this is useful especially during sorting, when you have to specify some key for sorting. Yes. Any questions about this question, this problem? Else I think we can solve another question. Let's see. Let's do question 5 itself. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. So let's do this. Don't see any questions. Okay. Okay, then the next question is, suppose we have to write a function that returns the length of the longest word in a given string. Okay. So again, this is not a very difficult thing to do, but we shall see the shortcut way of doing it in Python. Let's go to the next. Let's do it here. So suppose we have a string, say s equals to say something like this. Let's just add some more characters. Okay, so suppose we have a string like this, and then we want to print the length of the longest word in the given string. So just by looking at it, we can see that this is the longest word, and the length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 is the answer. So your answer should be 7. Right. So how do we do it? So firstly, we have to break this string into the words, right? We have to break this string into a list of words, say ABC, then this, and then this. Okay. So how do we do that? We use the split command. So each string has a function called the split command, which can be used to basically split the string. That's what we use. So we can say list of words equals to s.split. Okay. So what this will do is it will split the string based on the spaces, and there can also be like new lines. It will do the split itself. And then let's print LW and see what is there. So we can see that LW is a list of the words, and the words have been split based on the spaces. Now you can also use split with say other characters. So suppose you have, say, dashes, in some cases, say some punctuation marks. Then you have to split. Then you have to pass what character do you want to split it with. You have to pass as dash. So now it will split based on dashes. So let's also keep a space in between. Now if we do this, it will not split based on spaces. It will split based on only dashes. So if we run this, so we can see now it has got 3 words, or 3 splits basically. So the first 2 as we expected, but since we told it to split with respect to dashes, since there is no dash in between, it has considered this whole thing as one word. But anyway, this is not what we want, so we just want to split it based on space. So we can do this. So if we do this, split based on space, or we can, if we just do s dot split, it will give us just the words. So this is a very handy tool. Okay, so now that we have the words, how do we get the length of the maximum, basically maximum word? So the common sense way, or if you think of it like if you know some other languages like C, C++, Java, so how would you do it? Or if you don't know the shortcut, you would do it like, say, you would store the, say, maximum length equals to, say, some number, say -1, and then you will go over each word in the list, for word in the list, and you will check if length of the word is greater than the max, then you set max equals to the length of w. So what we are doing here is basically we are going over all of the words in the list. We are checking if the length of this current word is greater than the maximum, and then we are if it is greater than maximum, then we are just swapping, like setting this length of the word to the maximum. And if you print this, print m, we can see that it is 7, right? And so yeah, so what's one line, how to do this whole thing in one line basically, that we'll see. So in Python you have a max function which will do the word work for you. So basically we want to find the max of the lengths of each word. So to get the length of each word, we can again do list comprehension, like len x for length word for word in length, like list of words. So this is basically your one line code for the above code. Let's run it and then we'll discuss. You can see again it's 7. So what is going on here is we are doing basically the same thing. You can see basically the code is the same thing, but we are utilizing list comprehension, and we are also using this max function, right? So you can see we are iterating over all the words in the list of words, and for each word we are actually calculating the length of this word, and we are storing a list. We are creating a list with it. Then finally we are just printing out the maximum among this length of words in this list. So this is how you can print the list of words. So yeah, so if you want to do the whole thing in one line, that also you can do. You can also do it this way. Instead of setting it list words, you can also do it here s dot split, and this whole code now becomes just one line. So you just have an input and you have just one line to get the maximum length of the word. Okay. So now suppose slight modification to this question. So suppose we don't want the length of the longest word, but we want to actually print the longest word. What is the longest word? We want to print it, right? So let's do it first the old fashioned way. Let's call it that. So it's again not very difficult. So let's say max string equals to, say, empty string, and then the code will just change a little bit. Yes. So again what we are doing here is the same thing. So firstly we are obviously splitting the string based on the words, so list of words, and we are storing the maximum string. So initially we are setting that an empty string is the maximum string. Then we are going over each word in the list, and we are checking if length of this current word is length of the maximum string, basically maximum word. And if it is greater, then obviously maximum string should be equals to the word, right? So basic checking of max. Okay, so you can see this this is the longest word. So how do we do it in one line now? How do we do this in one line? So this will be slightly more complicated, but not too difficult. So let's see. Okay, so even I don't know how to do it, but we'll do it one by one. We'll try to do it. So let's see. So we want to basically create a list of basically all the words, right? And we want to keep a length of each word, right? So yeah, I think we can use a dictionary in this case. I think a dictionary would be perfect. So here we will have the strings and the lengths as the key. So we can do again, say word comma length word for word in s dot split. So let's call it d1. Let's do it step by step. Or say d. So we are creating a dictionary where, if you show the dictionary, so we are basically creating each word. We are creating a dictionary where the keys are the words and the values are the lengths of the words, right? So now if we want to basically find out the maximum length word, so then again we have to use the max function, obviously. Max of this. But if we just do max of this, then it will give us the maximum of the keys. So again we have to pass the key function. So just like we did for sort, in max function also we can have a key. So here we want the key to be basically this second element, right? Okay, so yeah. Yeah, I think this cannot be done in one line. Okay, so I think we have to do it in 2 lines, sadly. So okay, let's call it d equals to this, and then we have to print basically print max of d with key equals to lambda. So just like last time, dx. So this will give us the maximum element of d where the key is the maximum, basically. Okay. Can we do it in one line? Yes, we can, but it will be slightly more complicated. So let's not do it. Okay, any question about this? Otherwise, I think, yeah, I think we are over time. So let's wrap up. So if you have any questions about any of the questions or anything about Python in general, you can ask me now. Otherwise, I'll stop the meeting. Okay, so I guess no questions. Okay, then I'm stopping the recording and